Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to Collider Mailbag, the all mailbag show here on Collider Video, where all we do is take your mailbag questions. This is a much more laid-back kind of show as opposed to Movie Talk Monday through Friday. We talk a little bit behind the scenes. We talk a little more frank, off the cuff, whatever. And I am not alone today. Helping me out today, sitting over here, is our very own Wendy Lee. Wendy, thank you so much for doing mailbag with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be a lot of fun.
It is going to be a lot of fun. So listen, as I was saying, guys, this is all about your mailbag questions. How do you get one of your mailbag questions on our show? It's simple. You email us at collidervideo@gmail.com. Send on in your questions. Maybe you'll get lucky. You'll see it on Movie Talk sometime Monday through Friday, or maybe it'll be on one of our Saturday or Sunday mailbag shows. So with all that out of the way, let's get to our first mailbag question. Wendy, what do we have?
Here we go. Andrew Smith writes, "Hello, everyone. I just wonder why you don't do single movie review videos for all the films you see like the Schmoes do on their channel. I'm sure we all love to hear your more in-depth thoughts on all the films you see. Thanks. Love you all."
Yeah, movie reviews is one of those weird things. First of all, if a movie's not popular, now I think you're going to see us do some more movie reviews moving forward, but there have been a couple things. One, we're incredibly busy around here. It is a crazy, crazy schedule we do. There are full-time staffs of people that work on doing 1.5 hour show a week. We do 5 movie talks, 2 mailbags, Jedi Council Heroes, 6 recap shows, and then all the other special little stuff that we do. We're really slammed around here. Then what we found early on too is that for a lot of movies that we would do reviews for, this is going back a long time, but we do certain reviews for certain movies, and if people weren't interested in that movie, they wouldn't check out the review. I mean, that just makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. And so we kind of started leaning away from it. Plus, when you consider how much hours you have to commit to be able to do a movie review. Because first of all, you want to have the movie review up before the movie comes out. That means you got to go to a press screening. Sometimes the press screening is like 45 minutes to an hour away, because even if it's in Los Angeles is a big city, and it's very difficult to get around this town because the traffic is just bad wherever you go, whenever you go. So you're talking about 45 minutes to an hour to get there, 45 minutes to an hour to get back. You're there for 2.5 hours to watch it. Now you've committed about 4 hours. Then you have to actually make the video. You have to plan out what you're going to say, produce the video, render it, upload, all that kind of stuff. So you start pouring in about 5 or 6 or 7 hours into a video that maybe not that many people are interested in seeing in the first place. So that's when we started going to doing spoiler reviews for big major films. Because, with movie reviews, when movie comes out, Krampus comes out this week, right? Mm-hmm. There are going to be roughly 7,000 Krampus movie reviews on YouTube tomorrow. There just are. There's just going to be that many. So we thought we would try to do things a little bit differently by doing spoiler reviews to make what we do a little bit different from everybody else. Now, we still put up the odd movie review, but with spoiler reviews, it became especially important that we just do major films, because if we don't do major films, then spoiler reviews are for people who have already seen the movie. And if nobody goes to see the movie, they can't watch a spoiler review for what we're doing, right? So we are going to do more spoiler reviews in the future. As a matter of fact, we are doing a spoiler review for Star Wars: The Force Awakens. That spoiler review is coming. We are actually going to do a review for Star Wars: The Force Awakens as well, because here's what we're doing. This is very cool. So me and Ann, mm-hmm. Mark, Christian, and Tiffany Smith, the 4 people on Jedi Council, and of course Ann, we've all been invited to go down to the world premiere of Star Wars: Force Awakens.
I don't like any of you.
I know. We've gotten lots of jealousy rage from a lot of our friends right now. We're going to be going down to the world premiere, and we're getting all biffed up. We're going to be dressed in our best. We're going to take a limo down. And then when the movie's over on the 14th, we're going to come back here to the studio, and we're going to record a review for it will be a non-spoiler review for Star Wars: Force Awakens, and then we'll do our spoiler review a little bit later on. But I don't know when you're going to see us do regular, like week in, week out movie reviews. That might come sometime in the near future. That might not come somewhere in the near future. Something we'll keep our eyes on.
But I wanted to ask you too, don't you think that's something that sets aside Movie Talk from the rest of the movie reviews on YouTube, is that on Movie Talk, a lot of times you do a lot of mini reviews, because
that's
more
true.
often than not, you or the Schmoes or somebody have seen the movie, so you get to talk about it a little bit. And if you kind of just do the same thing everyone else is doing, you're kind of throwing a bucket of water into the ocean, in a sense.
It kind of is, and it's a good point. So especially on Mondays when we talk about the box office report, the movies come up. So I keep looking for the box office report, because I'm used to being on the movie talks that where the box office report. So let's say we're talking about Hunger Games. it's number one at the box office, then each of us actually get to give our kind of impressions of the movie and stuff like that. So kind of in a way, we do review all the movies that come out, just in a very shorter, kind of subtle kind of way. All right, what's next?
All right. Frank Gilbert writes, a friend and I have been arguing all day about the fate of Odin. He says Loki already killed him, and I say his death would be better for the story if it happened on screen. What do you experts think?
Yeah, I think we took a question that's very similar to this one, maybe about 4 or 5 months ago. There is a belief out there that if you haven't seen, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but the movie's been out forever. If you haven't seen it, it's your problem. At the end of Thor 2, Thor Ragnarok, we find out that Odin...
Dark World?
Dark World, thank you. What did I call it? Ragnarok is the next one. Sorry. Dark World was the last one, of course. At the end of Thor Dark World, there we find out that at the end, Odin, who's sitting there on the throne, is actually Loki, shapeshifting to look like Odin. So a lot of people are wondering, Loki killed Odin. I don't believe he did kill Odin for 2 reasons. Now, remember, this is me saying I don't believe it. I haven't talked to Kevin Feige about it. He hasn't told me that Odin is still alive, but here's why I don't believe, I should say, that Odin was killed by Loki. Reason number one is exactly what you said in your email. Odin has been a major character in the Thor films up to this point. If you're going to kill him, you don't just do it off screen without seeing it. I mean, that would be an epic thing. Like somebody killing Odin, that would be epic. You don't waste that for an off-camera shot. I mean, that seems ridiculous to me. But the second thing is this, is if you've got to understand who Loki is and his feelings towards his father. Like, remember, in Thor 1, everything Loki did, as bad and as twisted and as evil as it was, everything Loki did in Thor 1 was about him trying to look good to his dad. At the end of the day, it wasn't about Loki wanting power. He wanted that position with his father, with Odin. Even at the end, after he let Laufey and the frost giants into his father's chamber, he just did that to lure them there so he could kill them, so he could look good to his dad. And then you say, well, yeah, but in Thor 2, he was really mad at his dad. Yeah, he was really pissed off at his mom and his dad. His adopted mom and his adopted dad at any point. But when you found out that Thor's mom died, when Loki's mom died, he was devastated. Yeah. And I remember being in the theater going, you just pissed off Loki.
Not smart.
Not smart. So, he's mad. He's got his pout, because he's the pouty son, right? So he projects, he gives it off this thing that I'm mad at you. I hate you, Mom. I hate you. But he didn't. He loved her. And when he found out she died, he was broken. And so he carries on for side. Now I'm mad at you, Dad. I hate you, blah, blah, blah. But I believe underneath all that is still a guy who loves his father and wants nothing more in the world but his father's approval. Now, that doesn't mean he won't lock him away somewhere or he'll do something else rash, but I just do not believe that Loki killed his dad.
In a recent interview, I don't know if it's recent, but I did some research last night, and Anthony Hopkins said in an interview, Odin is dead. I've done 2 films and that's enough. But don't they all have a contract that they have to do as many films as necessary?
Well, it depends on how long their contract is. So if in theory that Marvel signed Anthony Hopkins to a 2-film deal, then his deal would be done and he wouldn't have to do any more. But maybe they signed him to a 4-film deal or 5-film deal. Here's the thing though, I don't believe Anthony Hopkins. And I don't believe Anthony Hopkins believes that Odin's dead. I believe Anthony Hopkins is he's been in this business so long, he's playing in Coast to the Vest. I don't believe what he's saying whatsoever. Now, that doesn't mean Odin will pop up in the next film or 2. Doesn't necessarily mean that at all. But I do believe Loki is still around, or that Odin is still around. And I'll be shocked if we don't see him in the next couple of films. I mean, it's totally possible. Totally possible it is, but I'll be shocked. All right, what's next?
A fan writes, in the recent trailer for Captain America Civil War, there was a segment of dialogue between Cap and Tony regarding how they were friends. At first, when I heard, I thought it was a beautiful moment, but later on, to my surprise, I discovered that many people actually had a problem with the piece of dialogue, saying that Cap and Tony were never really friends.
No, that's you can only really say that if you're not paying attention to the movies, because yes, Tony and Captain Rogers, they have if they had a Facebook status, it would be it's complicated kind of relationship. That's the relationship they have. Like they were kind of at each other's throats a bit in the first Avengers movie, but then when it came down to it, they had each other's backs. Like on the helicarrier, they had each other's backs. They both saved each other's lives. And by the end of Avengers Age of Ultron, like they had formed a really strong bond. And, to the point that as they were departing, they each even said to each other, I'm actually going to miss you. They have that friendship. So yes, they have their spats, and he's like, you're nothing but everything special about you came out of a bottle. Put on the suit. Yeah, they have those moments. But but you see, they've also been forming a bond. And as you go through Age of Ultron, especially at the end of Age of Ultron, even though as a lot of friends do, they'll be mad at each other sometimes. But at the end of that, you could clearly see they had formed that bond. They had formed that friendship. And so for me as a fan, I totally buy into that.
Do you think that the dissatisfaction with that dialogue comes from the fans really wanting to find some sort of direct conflict that they can, say, okay, now that's why they're fighting each other?
It might be. I just honestly think that if anybody did look at it though and say that didn't make any sense because they weren't really that close friends, I would say they're not really paying attention to what's been going on in the movies at this point, because I think it makes it pretty clear that they are.
And when the movie comes out, whose side do you think you're going to be on?
Oh, Captain America's. I'm Captain America all the way. 100% on Captain America's side.
I actually switched sides. Before
Really?
I saw the trailer, I'm like, yeah, Iron Man all the way. And then I saw the trailer, I'm like, oh, I'm on Cap's side.
Of course, and it's Captain's movie, so they're gonna skew things his way a little bit. All right, What's next?
Thomas Dunn writes, hey, Collider Movie crew, love the show, so you're part of my daily routine. Anyways, I had a question about Carrie Fisher's remark about having to lose weight for the new movie. I read her comments and thought, yeah, that sucks, but isn't that a part of being in a movie? Perhaps I just don't understand as a man. Don't get me wrong, I love Carrie Fisher and what she's done for women in the industry, but this just seems like a part of the job, especially when you consider that Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill had to do the same. Anyways, keep up the fantastic work and bring on the filthy.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know what he's asking about, there was a recent interview with Carrie Fisher, and there's no sugarcoating. She was complaining that they asked her to lose 35 pounds to be in the movie. And she was really, I love Carrie Fisher. I love Carrie Fisher. But let's call it what it is. She was whining. And then she went on this thing about it's just ridiculous. They care more about your looks than anything else. And I'm sorry, but Carrie, you're whining because it's not about you. It's about the character of Princess Leia. The last time we all saw Princess Leia, she was a warrior princess. I mean, no Xena pun intended, but she was brutal with the gun on the run. I think she was a warrior princess, fearless leader, all that kind of stuff. And she's still around. And she was, physically speaking, she was young. Well, she was young. Nothing we knew about that, but fit, trim. She kept active, all that kind of stuff. It would not make sense now. And if the character of Princess Leia in this movie, forget who the actress is, if the character is still supposed to be that warrior princess, now she's seasoned and a veteran and has seen it all and all that kind of stuff, then physically you have to get yourself in the shape to play what that character is supposed to be. We just saw In the Heart of the Sea last night. And Chris Hemsworth trimmed himself down. Yeah. Big, bulky Chris Hemsworth. It's not about, what's really hot is thinner guys now instead of muscular guys. No, that wasn't it. It was the character calls for this. The role calls for the character to be having suffered. I won't get in spoilers for anything like that, but clearly needed some weight loss. All right. So the actor has to serve the character. So he did that. Do you think, if they cast for a role and they said, and the character that they're casting for is supposed to be a redhead, is an actress going to complain? An actress is brunette? Oh, I shouldn't have to wear a red wig. Yes, you should, because the character is supposed to be a redhead. So you do it. The actors serve the character. The character is not there to serve the actor. And if I'm the producers of Star Wars, and I know Princess Leia at this point is still supposed to be that seasoned warrior princess, all that kind of stuff, then I'm not going to say, no, Carrie. No, just because you're 40 pounds overweight at this point or whatever she was, and there's nothing wrong with being 40 pounds overweight, if that's what nothing wrong with that at all. But you're an actress and you want to play a role of the warrior princess, then you got to lose the weight to fit the character. So I don't disagree with a lot of the stuff she was saying in the rant. I just found it a little bit whiny, right? Complaining that, how dare they ask me to lose weight to play the role of this character? Well, I'm sorry, Carrie, but that's what the character was. So, it can be a touchy thing. Look, this is not about, you never want to get into a situation where you're body shaming and doing all that type of despicable stuff whatsoever. But it's a role. This is what the character's supposed to be. If you're the actress who's going to play that role, then you have to do what you need to do, whether it's emotionally or physically, mentally, intellectually, whatever you do to morph into that character. So if you don't want to do that, then don't play the role. So anyway, that's just my thoughts on it.
The only other actress I can think of that really changed her appearance for a role was Charlize Theron, for Monsters, where she really, really changed her appearance. So I feel like, does it seem like there's more male actors that are losing or gaining weight for their roles versus women?
Well, I mean, look, let's be honest and let's be fair here. There's a much larger amount of pressure on on actresses in Hollywood.
Yes.
As far as physicality goes, you always have to be skinny and fit and trim. You can be Russell Crowe. Now, Russell Crowe, aside from Daniel Day-Lewis, I say is the greatest actor in the world. You can be Russell Crowe and be 30 pounds overweight for a role if you want to be. And you can get away with, you can get away with it to a point. You can't go too far. Even Russell Crowe had to trim down a bit to play Jor-El in Man of Steel. But even though he trimmed down a bunch and dropped a lot of weight for it, he was still kind of overweight for Jor-El. But because you're an actor of the caliber of him, but there's a lot more pressure on actresses than there is on actors. Now, actors do a lot more, whether you're looking at Christian Bale for what he did. Well, Dennis, what was the name of the movie where he dropped down to like 8 pounds? The Machinist, yes. And it wasn't actually 8 pounds. But when you look at what Christian Bale went through physically to get down to that, crazy Tom Hanks did.
Matthew McConaughey and with Dallas.
Yeah, Matthew McConaughey did for the Dallas Buyers Club. He trimmed right out, dropped a whole bunch of weight. And so, yes, that is called upon for actors, but let's not fool ourselves. There is far more social pressure, far more professional pressure on actresses in Hollywood to maintain a certain body image than there is on that. And whether that's fair or not is an issue for another discussion, and how that can be fixed is an issue for another discussion. But in this one particular isolated situation, with Carrie Fisher complaining about having to lose weight, I have no sympathy for Carrie Fisher. It's what the character called for. You're the actress playing it, then you got to morph into it.
I totally agree with you. I think I get it. Like, to lose the 35 pounds, it's not easzy. You got to watch what you eat. And you gotta exercise.
No! I do not envy what she had to do to go at all. That must have been really tough.
But you still have to look like Leia, and also at the same time, no one's asking her to get back into the slave Leia outfit. So it's,
that might have been pushing it a bit.
That's pushing.
That might have been pushing. All right, what's next?
All right. Stephen Stanley writes, "Hey, Movie Talk crew. I've been watching you guys since the Man of Steel review, and I got to meet you guys in Atlanta.
Oh, perfect. That's awesome.
Because of Movie Talk, I've seen amazing movies such as Prisoners, The Godfather, and most Quentin Tarantino films. What were your motivations for starting Movie Talk?"
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, I started the world's first movie-related podcast back in, I want to say 2005. I mean, the term podcast wasn't even coined yet, I don't think, when we started doing, because I used to run a website called The Movie Blog, and we did the Movie Blog audio edition. And it was the first thing we ever, and I believe the very first story we ever talked about in my very first movie podcast was that Brandon Routh had been cast to play Superman. I think that was our first story ever, as a matter of fact. But anyway, I ran the Movie Blog. We had a really good, successful run at the Movie Blog, all that kind of stuff. But I believed a long time ago that the way things were moving was into the multimedia format, was into audio and video. And the technology really wasn't there yet to do a lot of video, although I did video at the time, but it was a pain in the ass. Oh my goodness, because computers 10 years ago, a lot slower than they are today. Video quality of the cameras that you buy, the type of quality you could get in a video camera that cost $400 10 years ago was nowhere near the video quality that you can get in a camera that you pay $400 for today. YouTube wasn't even a thing yet. Like when I started it. So it's where you're hosting your video. These were all big, major pains in the ass at the time. But I knew, let me skip a lot of stages. When I came over to AMC, I told AMC at the time when I was with them that I will run this like news division thing, but know this, I'm going to take us in the direction of video because I believe that's where things need to be. And so I ran AMC for a couple years. Then we started to do some video stuff. You know, Dennis came on board and we started doing some video stuff. But it was then at Comic-Con, I think 4 years ago at Comic-Con, that we had a little bit of a meeting in my hotel room while we were there. And we said, look, it's time. It's just time. And we did. And so a few weeks later, we launched what we were naming For Your Consideration was the name of it at first. And we did it, I think, twice. Was it twice a week, Dennis? Yeah, we did twice a week for a time because Dennis and I had done a video show prior to us coming over to AMC called For Your Consideration. We did that once a week for fun. So we brought that over, did it twice a week. Then I think we did like 3 times a week. We said, you know what, we can do this daily. And we did. And I was amazed the first time we had 1,000 views. I could not believe it. 1,000 people, imagine that. And now we have like 100,000 people a day. And overall, we're having like 300,000 people a day are watching our various videos. Like 7, 8, 9, 10 million people a month, which is kind of crazy. But the motivation was this. Here's the real motivation part. I'm also a big sports fan. And I found that a lot of the movie commentators out there spoke in artistic discussion terms. They were discussing, debating the art. And I love that. That's great. But what I also noticed was that when me and my buddies talked about movies amongst ourselves, our conversations sounded more like the tone of a sports fan. Like we would love to talk and speculate and who performed here and all that kind of stuff. And I just decided that if we did a show, I wanted it to feel like conversations buddies would have talking about movies. And I think we do that. Like when we get me, Dennis Schnepp, Christian Mark, whatever, up here on this panel, it is buddies. Like when you hear us talking on this panel, that is how the conversations sound like, even when we're out there in the boardroom talking. That's how we talk. And we thought, I want to bring the enthusiasm and the perspective of sports fandom into the movie fandom world. And that's how Movie Talk got started.
And for the people who are wanting to get into the YouTube movie review, what advice do you have for them, not on how to start, but stay motivated? Oh,
well, yeah, that's a 2-hour video. But
you have something like that.
I'll let you know, and maybe you can help me remind me to do this. We'll put this in the description of the video, is that about a year and a half ago, I did a 2-hour video on 20 tips for getting started in the in movie blogging, YouTube, podcasting, or blogging. And we'll put a link to that thing in there. And I go into, what your motivation should be, some technical things, some equipment suggestions, some online services you can use, all that kind of stuff. So it's a full 2-hour video on how you can get started and all that kind of thing if you want to get into it for fun. And we will put the link to that in the description, and hopefully that'll be helpful to you guys. All right,
it's one of my favorite videos of yours.
Oh, you've seen it?
I've seen it.
Oh, very cool.
Mm-hmm. Carter Johnson writes, I just want to say how amazing it is to watch your show every day. I always find myself laughing during each show. Me too. My question is about Star Wars. I know everyone on the show hates the prequels, but I liked them when I was younger. I think it really helped draw my generation into the story. Had the prequels been different, how do you think it would have affected the sales of The Force Awakens? Yeah, here's the funny thing. It was me and I think Christian and Mark were having this discussion a couple of weeks ago. We were lamenting about the prequels and how bad they are. And we just finished, for those of you who don't know, we just finished doing commentary videos where we put cameras on us doing commentary on all 3 of the Star Wars prequels. It was tough to get through, but if you want to pop on the prequel and then watch our video along with it, we had a lot of fun doing it. But here's the interesting thing, though. Like, oh, don't you wish they had been better? Don't you wish they had been better? At the time, yeah. And right up until about 2 years ago, I wish they had been better. But here's the reality. This is kind of where the whole destiny, everything happens for a reason kind of thing comes into play. Had the prequels been better, George Lucas never would have sold Lucasfilm to Disney. Then Disney never would have or Lucasfilm never would have appointed Kathleen Kennedy as the head of Lucasfilm. They wouldn't have then gone out and gotten J.J. Abrams, and there wouldn't be a Force Awakens. So now look, I haven't seen The Force Awakens yet. That comes in 10 days. So maybe the movie will suck. I'm thinking it's going to be awesome. And so the reality is, though, if those prequels had been like a little bit better, there's a very strong possibility we would not be where we are right now with The Force Awakens coming as good as it looks, with Star Wars looking like it's in a healthier position right now than it has been forever. So I got to say, do I think it would have affected it? Yeah, it wouldn't exist. So what do I feel about the prequels? I'm glad they are the way they are. That's the only time you're ever going to hear me say that, but I'm glad the prequels are the way they are. Because of that, we got JJ working on Star Wars. I totally agree with you. When I saw this question, I thought, well, if it was any different, there was no way it would have gone down the path that it would have gone down.
Exactly.
There wouldn't be Star Wars Force Awakens. But have you thought of if they never made those prequels, would we even be getting a new Star Wars film?
Yeah, I thought about that too. Had they just not, let's say George Lucas was sitting down and he's writing out The Phantom Menace, and we go back to 1997 and he's writing out The Phantom Menace, maybe 96, he's writing it out. And then he gets into the third act of it and just goes, you know what? This just isn't working. Christian Harloff is a much better George Lucas than me. This just isn't working. And he picks it up and tears it up, walks away from it. And then maybe 3, 4, 5 years later comes back. And only now he decides, you know what? Steven has been wanting to work on a Star Wars movie. And he brings in Steven Spielberg to do a little bit of stuff with him. And then he does what he did with the first trilogy. He directs the first himself. Then he oversees the second and third one, getting other directors to pick up where he left off. I do think we would have gotten more movies. And hopefully they would have been better. But now we're playing with fire. And I'm just glad and happy we are where we are right now.
So excited for The Force Awakens.
Oh, me too. All right, what's next?
All right, Bethany Jackson writes, I have another fear that for a third time in a row, Sony will cast an actress who should play Gwen as MJ and an actor who should play MJ as Gwen. I found Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane boring and depressing. Ooh. I think that it was a huge mistake to not cast Emma Stone as Mary Jane. I believe she would have been as much more of a perfect casting choice like J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson. I feel like Sony has no idea who these women are, and it bothers the heck out of me. I love these characters and hope they stick to the classic 616 versions and not go with the ultimate versions. I would love to know everyone's thought about the casting of Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane Watson. What do you think about the future of these characters and Sony's past mistakes?
Well, I mean, yes. The very first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie where they cast, what's the actress's name again? Help me out. Who played Kirsten Dunst? Thank you. With Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane, that was a mistake. It was a colossal mistake. That's not a commentary on Kirsten Dunst's talents as an actress, whatever. It was just a situation. You hear us talk all the time about fit. It's not about how good of an actress Kirsten Dunst is. It's about, was she the right fit to play Mary Jane? And I think the answer to that is no. But I have to disagree with you at the same time. I don't think Emma Stone would have been a good Mary Jane either. I thought Emma Stone was a terrific Gwen Stacy. I loved the first Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield. And one of the big reasons I loved it so much is because I thought Emma Stone was so good. And I love the chemistry between Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield in that first one. And one of the not bad things about The Amazing Spider-Man 2, because there's a lot of bad stuff in there, but one of the things that I thought still worked was Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy. And you're right. I was never on board with Shailene Woodley as Mary Jane. Shailene Woodley, who I do believe is one of the brightest up-and-coming stars in Hollywood. I think she's going to have a great future. Don't worry about how bad that the diversity, whatever the name of the Divergent, Allegiant, whatever. Don't worry about how bad those films look. Trust me, she is uber talented and she's been around for a long time. But it was the same thing as Kirsten Dunst to me. She's not Mary Jane. She's just not Mary Jane Watson. So then, it didn't fit to me.
Who would be your pick, your perfect pick for MJ?
See, that's the thing. These questions about, hey, John, when a lot of people write me these questions, who should play this? Any one of 1,000 good actors. Any one of 1,000 good actresses in the case of Mary Jane. I mean, I'm not a casting person. I didn't send out and get 1,000 audition reels. But I just believe you can find somebody who's really talented, who is also the right fit, who's a good fit for it. And I just don't think that Shailene Woodley would have been it, but I do think they knocked it out of the park with Emma Stone. So let's see what happens as we get into this new Spider-Man universe. I'm sure we'll probably hear within the next year. Within the next year, we will find out who our new Mary Jane is going to be. And I do think they're going to go Mary Jane and not Gwen Stacy.
Right.
I think they're going to go more of the traditional understanding of who his love, his soulmate is, and that's Mary Jane. I think we're going to go Mary Jane, and let's see how well they do with that.
Yes.
All right. What's next?
Cody Guest's right. Hello, Collider crew. My name is Cody Guest, and I'm from South Carolina. My question is in regards to the lack of respect for professional wrestling and the lack of respect wrestlers get when they transition into acting. I was watching a review of Trainwreck done by What the Flick, and one of the panelists said he does not watch wrestling because he is a normal person. As a longtime wrestling fan, this comment annoyed me. Why does there seem to be this idea in Hollywood that professional wrestlers are second-rate entertainers unless you're someone like The Rock or Dave Bautista, that you cannot transition into being a very successful actor? I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on this.
Because wrestlers are second-rate entertainers. I mean, I love, this is coming from a guy who grew up loving wrestling. I grew up loving wrestling, and me and my buddies, every year, we get together and we watch WrestleMania. Actually, we went to WrestleMania this past year. I was there. I saw Brock lose the title to Seth Rollins because he cashed in the Money in the Bank. I was there. I physically went to WrestleMania. Big fan. But they're not actors. Now, I've had a lot of friends of mine who are big fans of wrestling, and as I've been in the past, and say, well, wrestling is acting. No, it's not. No, it's not. They're kind of, it's more like sketch performance.
Yes.
You know, I've always said, like, I don't believe Justin Timberlake can act to save his life. I'm a big fan of Justin Timberlake. I really am as an entertainer. But I don't think the dude can act to save his life. But I will also tell you, he might be my single all-time favorite host on Saturday Night Live. When he's on Saturday Night Live, he kills it. But the thing is that sketch performance, kind of comedy sketch performance, borderline improv, is very, very different from what Daniel Day-Lewis does. It's very, very different from what a Russell Crowe does or Meryl Streep. That's acting. That's kind of performance, acting performance. Wrestlers take on some ridiculous character, right?
Yeah.
And look, even the most diehard wrestling, they're ridiculous. Like The Rock was so awesomely ridiculous, but ridiculous nonetheless. You know, they play that persona, but that's different from acting, you know? And when they come into the world of movies, into a profession that they know nothing about, then they are second-class entertainers. Because I would much rather, personally, take some, 19-year-old guy who has been training in acting since he was 7 years old, gave up everything else, committed himself to a life of learning the art and the craft of acting, and committed himself to it, has been dedicated to it for 10 years of his life, blah, blah, blah. I want that kid more than some dude who did a suplex. I just do. Now, The Rock, he had the advantage of this. Rock was not a very good actor for a lot of years. He just got by on his pure, incredible charisma. This guy bleeds charisma. And that's what carried him. It took him 10 years of committing himself to the art of acting and getting the training and getting the coaching and getting the experience. 10 years after, that horrible Scorpion King movie that he debuted in, 10 years later, after that, we were able to now sit back and be in a place where we are now where I can say, you know what? Dwayne Johnson is a legit, serviceable Hollywood actor. You can put him in to lead a movie, not just because of his unbelievable charisma, but he's got the dramatic chops now to go along with. I'm not going to call him one of the 10 best actors in the business or anything, but he is legit Hollywood actor at this point. But it took a lot of time. Dave Bautista, who I love. I've gotten together with Dave on a number of occasions. He's helped us out with our Philippines disaster relief that we did. We just got together with him.
For Spectre.
For Spectre about 2 months ago, we got together with him. Super awesome guy, but humble. He's also incredibly humble. And I remember the first time I sat down with him, Dave was to talk about Man with the Iron Fists.
Oh.
And I remember, I'll never forget, I was so blown away by the humility of this guy because he's the first Hollywood actor I sat down with who looked at me and said, here's the thing, man, like, I understand how limited I am. And there's only certain roles that guys like, this is what he said, that guys like me can play. So I'm really grateful that I get those. And I was blown away by that humility. And you were there when we were talking to Dave for Spectre as well. He still has that same humility. The difference, though, is he's now had about 3 more years where he has done nothing but commit himself to the art of acting. And he's getting a little bit better by a little bit better by a little bit better. Look, we saw him as Drax the Destroyer in Guardians of the Galaxy. That was not a great thespian performance. But he was in the hands of a great director like James Gunn who knew how to accentuate his strengths and hide his weaknesses. And that's great. But there's a reason that, guys like The Miz or, John Cena, whatever, the only movies they appear in are the ones produced by WWE. Oh. Now, I just love John Cena in Trainwreck. I thought he was great. But that's because, that isn't because he's got great acting ability. No, it's because I think he's totally shameless. He was willing to do whatever the director did. He played along with it, and I loved him in it. I even like the one trailer of Sisters where he's in the trailer. We just watched it actually out there. And, I think he can do that. But he's not a thespian at this point. So one of the reasons people don't give respect to, WWE wrestlers as actors is because they're not actors. They should be considered second-class performers until they've put in the years and years and years and work dedicated to just acting like The Rock has done. So anyway, that's just the way I kind of see it. And I don't think, and that's coming from somebody who is an appreciator of what these professional wrestlers do. I appreciate the art of wrestling. Yeah. Like I said, I still go every year. It's just that let's call a spade a spade.
Now, we were talking about John Cena in all these movies, and he seems to really be embracing his brand, kind of like The Rock did in the beginning. But do you think he's going to be able to follow the path of The Rock with acting training and things like that? No,
I don't. I believe he does have a future. Mm-hmm. I believe he can do some things. But there's only one Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I mean, his whole career, if it wasn't for that Herculean-like charisma and charm, this dude can just charm the pants off of anybody. Like anybody. When he smiles, you'll melt. I've literally seen women's knees go weak when The Rock turns his head and gives his smile. Like because he's a force of nature. Like he's literally a force of nature. It's incredible. John Cena doesn't have that, but nobody else has that. Nobody does. And so I think John Cena will be able to carve out a place for himself in the entertainment world, but it's not going to be something. It's not going to be a career like The Rock's. Do we have any? That was the last question. That was the last question of the day. Thank you so much for doing this with me today, Wendy. I appreciate it. And thank you guys for joining us for this Saturday installment of Mailbag. Don't forget, we'll be back again tomorrow for Sunday's installment of Mailbag. Make sure you come back and join us for that. And listen, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the thumbs up on this button. Do me a favor. If you like these videos, share them around. Take this video, share it on your Twitter, share it on your Facebook. Just get the word out about our Collider videos. So that'll do it for us. Wendy, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter or Instagram at Wendy Lee Zaney.
And you can simply find me on Facebook or on Twitter just at John Campia. So that'll do it for us, guys. Special thanks to Jonathan and Dennis behind the cameras, and special thanks to you guys. Leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. And until next time, bye-bye.